Coming up now on Animal Outtakes, we're taking a look back at some of our favorite adventures this season.
We feel like there needs to be more to help preserve this incredible animal.
We're getting wild at Wild Florida. This park wants you to get close and personal with its residents in hopes that you will build a lasting appreciation for some unique and sometimes misunderstood animals.
Which one?
Our Inspector Planet is using our producer's dog, Rudder, to test color blindness in dogs. Sea turtle nests line the beaches of Florida, and Longboat Key Turtle Watch volunteers are doing their part to make sure hatchlings have a fighting chance. This and much more straight ahead on Animal Outtakes. An experience can last a lifetime, and this park knows how to make a lasting impression, and this place certainly did for us. It's called Wild Florida, and you would have to be a little wild yourself when it comes to the interactions guests can do. Encounters with sloths, lemurs, and even some other pokey residents, to name a few. Join us as we take a tour of Wild Florida. This morning, the crew and I left our home base of Sarasota, Florida. We headed east and continued to head east. And here we are.
You made it.
In the middle of nowhere.
That's right.
At Wild Florida. How did we stumble across you?
Well, probably not by accident, because we're a little bit off the beaten path and a little bit further out than most people want to travel, but it's worth the drive.
What are we bordering here? There's a magnificent lake.
Yes, so this is beautiful Lake Cypress. It's about a 4,000 acre body of water, very shallow, only about 5 feet deep, surrounded by endless hundreds of thousands of acres of swamps, marshes, waterways that make up the headwaters of the Everglades.
So what made you decide to come here and then have all of these magnificent animals around you?
Yeah, so we looked for years for the right location to set up an ecotourism destination, and we wanted to find one of the most pristine places and really had a vision of something like this. And when we found it, we knew this is the spot. We got to have it.
So what would we see as we begin our tour of the park?
On land in our gator park, we're going to see everything from alligators to zebras. Some native animals to Florida like foxes, raccoons, deer, alligators, but also exotics from all over the world. Zebras, sloths, lemurs, crocodiles, some really cool stuff, and really something for everyone.
Now, what type of animals can we safely interact with?
Yeah, not all of them, but a lot of them. And really, that's kind of our philosophy, is that seeing something and getting a picture of it is cool and memorable, but getting hands-on and actually feeding, touching, holding an animal becomes unforgettable and really creates that connection that people need, I think, to be able to get involved and perhaps conserve, protect, and preserve animals in the wild. That's really our mission, is we want people to make a connection with some of these animals and go home and say, how can I help preserve that animal? Our animal ambassadors they're just the best in the world at being able to create that connection. And some of those include porcupines, lemurs, sloths, albino alligators, crocodiles, and crusher.
So we're trying to get him to spin on command, so let's... Right like that, good boy, come on. There you go.
He's a 14-foot monster alligator that you can actually get in and have lunch with.
Sure.
With.
With. Are we the lunch?
No.
Oh my goodness, they're huge.
So we do have our two girls here. We have Stella and Safari. Stella is around 5 years old. Safari is around 4. So
now,
they're both still younger.
How did they end up here at Wild Florida?
Most of our animals come from other facilities. Tortellini, the leopard tortoise, is actually a rescued animal. So a lot of reptiles, birds, sometimes people can't take care of. They don't realize how long they live, and then they end up here with us, where they'll spend the rest of their lives here.
Now these were bigger than I thought they were going to be. I thought we were going to have little guys. But of course, let's talk about those stingers, for lack of a better word.
So for their quills there, so they're actually made of keratin, so the same stuff that makes up our nail and our hair. Misconception with porcupines is that they're going to shoot their quills at you. They actually can't shoot them out. So what they do is they will puff up and then they're going to run backwards and spear you. Or if it's a predator chasing them, they're going to just come to a dead stop and then the predator is going to run into their quills. And then they're designed to fall out. So even in here, they do fall out. Now these are the largest of the porcupine species and they're the third largest rodent in the world. And these girls are actually on the tinier side, around 35 pounds. The males can get to be about 60 pounds. And females usually top out around 40.
And they're absolutely gorgeous.
They are.
They are a beautiful rodent.
They are very cute rodent. Now Stella here, so I have their favorite treat, which are peanuts. Hi, Stella. So with a rodent, they're a herbivore. We give them a variety of fruits, veggies. They get a special rodent chow, and then they get the peanuts here for a special treat.
We're in the business of helping people make a connection with animals. And what they see on TV kind of just starts the process, but it doesn't meet all their needs and really kind of gets people interested in saying, I want to learn more about that animal, I need to get hands-on, but they can't afford to go to Costa Rica or Africa or some of these other places where the animals reside. And so they say, where can I go and see more about this sloth or this crocodile? And we provide that experience for them so they can create an unforgettable experience that makes them say, now I know I love this animal and I want to get more involved and help conserve and protect it out in the wild.
How about another encounter? This time with the Florida state reptile, an alligator. At Wild Florida, there was one big guy we just couldn't miss.
Hold. Hold right there. 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 And you can see he's literally just holding there even after backing away. It's not something an alligator would ever do. Hold right there. But as long as I ask him to hold still, and he will, and the reason for it, and hopefully this gives you a good sound bite, is that right there.
Andrew, you have a buddy down there who's not moving too much, but we know he's there. This is the famous Crusher.
That's right, yeah, he's world famous.
Tell us about him.
So yeah, Crusher here. He's our longest American alligator we have in the whole park. He's kind of our pride and joy. He's the superstar in one of the shows. We do 3 shows here a day, and he's the star of one of them. We do a Crusher show with him, and he's our best conditioned, best trained alligator. So believe it or not, you can train alligators, which I know sounds crazy. I know you're probably looking at me like I have 5 heads. But we'll actually go through the motions with them, and you can see, usually, knock on wood, what a good boy he is.
And he moved.
Yeah. they can actually feel vibration moving around up here. They have these little sensory organs all over their face. That kind of helps them hunt, so they can feel fish swimming around their face at night. So yeah, any sensation up here will kind of get them going. One of the main reasons we do this training with them, this is great enrichment for the animals. It really keeps their lives interesting, it keeps them stimulated, but also it helps aid in their own veterinary care. So what we can have them do, I can ask them to come over to me, hold still, and then work safely around them. So what I'm going to try to do right now is just work on some desensitization with Crusher, which is just a big fancy word saying getting him used to the touch. So I've got my knee all the way under him. I'm asking him to hold still the whole time, and then I'm just going to get him used to facial touches, because yeah, one of the reasons we do this is if a veterinarian ever had to come in here and kind of do any kind of workup of Crusher, if he needed to kind of check out his eyes, his ears, his nostrils. So I'm actually taking my fingers, rubbing them all along his eyes. This doesn't hurt him or anything like that, but he could definitely feel this. I've actually gotten him to the point where I can get up on his ear flaps, hold, Hold right there. Hold right there. Hold right there. And I've actually gotten this boy to the point where if I ask him to hold still, I can do some tooth desensitization. I'm actually an aspiring alligator dentist, so hold right there. So I actually have my fingertips on his teeth. Hold. 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 I'm actually putting a lot of pressure here and not even moving, so I'm gonna ask you to come up just a little bit. Hold right there. Good boy.
So when you talk about training, I mean, we're not training for entertainment or any such thing like that, but we are training with positive reinforcement, correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
And his positive reinforcement is obviously food.
Food, yeah.
Preferably not the two-legged kind.
We try to avoid that, yeah.
What is his favorite food?
His favorite food is actually chicken. So they do have taste buds, and they really are characters. They're all a little different. Some like chicken, some like other forms of red meat, like say beef. They make a pelleted crocodilian food, almost like a dog food, and some of them will only eat that. But yeah, his favorite is chicken. So during the shows and while we do training sessions with him, he gets mostly chicken gizzards. I'm surprised somebody likes those things, but
I do.
Fair enough. Didn't mean to offend you.
Yeah, no offense.
You're my good boy.
Rudder, sit. Paw. No. Good boy!
We're testing to see if dogs are in fact colorblind. That's next. Science is everywhere and it's all around us. It's observing the world, forming questions, and the willingness to find the answer. It's something our Inspector Planet does every day, and you can too.
My name is Dr. Tracy Fanara, research scientist and environmental engineer. At Mote Marine Laboratory, I use investigation and experimentation to answer questions. For years, scientists thought that dogs were colorblind, that they only see in black and white. It's not like we could take Rudder here to an eye doctor and ask him if he's seeing yellow, orange, or blue. So today we're going to test out if dogs are in fact colorblind. And the way we're going to do that is see if we can train Rudder to pick one color over another one consistently, which will mean that Rudder here is not colorblind. For humans, to test if we're colorblind, we're shown a set of pictures. And if you're able to see the distinction of a number within this color, then you probably are not colorblind. With dogs, we can't take them to the vet and ask them if they see the number 6. So we're going to try this test using these 3 colors, different ends of the spectrum. First, we're going to start with yellow and blue, and then we're going to get a little bit more tricky and see if Rudder can tell the difference between yellow and orange, which are a little bit closer. Let's go. Which one? Good boy! First, we're going to train Rudder to always pick the yellow construction paper. Good boy! And after a few tries, he got it. Good boy! Shake. Shake. Good boy! Paw. Shake. 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 Good boy! I actually think he's learning. So we know that Rudder has now learned to distinguish between yellow and blue. Let's see if he can distinguish other colors, like yellow and orange. Sit. Sit. Good boy. Shake. Good boy. Huh. First one. Now when we had yellow and blue, Rudder was able to distinguish yellow perfectly every single time. Now when we have yellow and orange, we just tried this 20 times, and 11 times he picked yellow, 9 times he picked orange. So technically there's no statistical difference. Shake? So what's going on here? How is he able to distinguish between blue and yellow and not orange and yellow? What's the difference? So you might assume color blindness means the absence of color and only seeing in black and white. But in fact, color blindness means a malfunction of the cones, cells in your retina that send signals to your brain to see color. So in humans, we have 3 sets of cones, blue, green, and red. Dogs only have 2. They may not be able to distinguish colors from each other within a certain color scheme. For example, a blade of grass might look gray. Remember guys, anyone could be a scientist or an engineer with some passion, hard work, and an innate curiosity of how the world works.
They spend most of their lives underwater, but during certain times of the year, sea turtles will make their way to the beach to lay eggs. There's a group of volunteers who are watching and helping this ancient animal, and their efforts are having a huge impact on these endangered species.
We look for tracks early in the season, and even now we're looking for, it looks like a big tractor trailer drove up on the beach with the mama turtles coming up. I have been patrolling longer than anyone in our group. I was mesmerized by the work that they did and how they saved the turtles. And once I actually saw a turtle nesting on the beach, which is rare to see, but I did see it. And once I saw babies go into the water, I mean, I was hooked for life. And I knew I wanted to move down here. So then it became, how can I take an early retirement and move down here full time?
You know, we found this nest earlier in the season and we stake it. We have all the stakes they tell us the story. It's kind of for the volunteers to know and the scientists, but it lets us know when this nest was put here, and then we know that it hatched 3 days ago. So we'll excavate this nest today. We want to follow natural processes. We don't try to interfere with nature. We're really doing this to accumulate data for the scientists so they can keep track of the species, help manage the species. So we're gonna come in today and excavate it. The reason we know that it hatched, it's a little bit subtle, but there's a little dip here. So there were about 100 eggs in this nest, and we'll know exactly how many there were when we're done, but the average nest has about 100 eggs. So when it hatched, it left a little bit of depression.
Tim, 'tis the season
It is.
for the turtles. You've been out here for a great number of years. What are you seeing this year? Is there anything different?
So we're having a record nesting year. On most of the beaches of Sarasota and Manatee counties, we're having a record nesting year, which is phenomenal. So on Longboat Key alone, we have approximately 1,300 loggerhead sea turtle nests. Loggerhead sea turtles are the most common in this area. So we're having a great year for loggerheads. We've also had several much rarer species. We have over 100 green sea turtle nests, which is a much more endangered species than the loggerhead. Loggerhead's threatened. So we have about over 100 green sea turtle nests as well this year, which is very exciting. So we're having a great busy year, working hard out on the beaches. So I'm digging down until I find the first egg. When I find the first egg, we're gonna use this little tape measure and we're gonna measure the distance. Get it to the height of the sand and then come up and say it was 31 centimeters. So the top egg is 31 centimeters deep. So they breed out in the water, as you said. The males and the female turtles meet up out in the Gulf of Mexico somewhere and they breed. The females return to shore. The males never return to shore. The females return to shore based on where they hatched. They had a magnetic imprint somehow on the beach, and they'll return to that beach and lay a nest. They'll dig a hole. This 200 to 300 pound animal crawl up on the beach, dig a hole 20, 30 centimeters deep, deposit 100 eggs on average, leave them there. And then 40 to 80 days later, those eggs will hatch. At night, they know it's night because the sun went down, the sand cooled off, and they come up out of the water, or they come up out of the sand, and then the natural world, the water is much brighter than the land. So the water reflects all the ambient light, so they'll go towards the water, and they'll swim out to the weed line where they'll be young adults and grow up into subadults, and then eventually become, breeding age 20 to 30 years old.
In this world that we live in today, it's a really topsy-turvy world. Why are we concerned with the turtles?
Well, I would argue that they've been around for 200 million years or so. So just the survival of their species is important. And there's 7 sea turtle species. All of them are threatened or endangered in some respect. The loggerheads is what we have primarily here, but they also, not just for being around 200 million years, they're a huge part of the biodiversity of the world, of the globe, of the planet, and they're a huge part of the food chain. So there's a balance that I personally think we should try to maintain and keep. So the biodiversity, the existence, the balance throughout the planet, I think is extremely important. And while they nest here, loggerhead sea turtles, they go all throughout the oceans and all throughout the bodies of water. So a turtle that's hatched here may make its way down, in the southern area of the Gulf of Mexico or over into the Atlantic. So there's a whole balance. It's not just to our beaches. They may return to our local beaches, but they'll live their lives throughout the Gulf Stream, throughout the different currents that exist, and be part of the food chain, part of the biodiversity in other parts of the world.
So assuming they can stay out of trouble and get out of somebody's food chain, what's their life expectancy?
So an adult sea turtle can live, the scientists are learning more and more. So the life expectancy is now more in the 80 years of age range. It used to be younger, but the scientists are finding through their tagging activities, they're finding that the age is a little bit longer than they expected. They start breeding when they're about 20, 25 years old, and they'll stop breeding probably in their 50s or 60s, but the life expectancy is into 80. One of the things that would also factor into all this is a hatchling. So there's about 100 eggs in a nest, but only about 1 in 1,000 makes it to breeding age. So they have a lot of challenges to get to breeding age. Only 1 out of 1,000 hatchlings makes it to breeding age.
Obviously, you're a young man, but you are retired. What made you decide that turtles was going to be your area of expertise for the next few years?
So seeing the little sea turtle hatchlings, which would literally fit in the palm of your hand, when they come up out of the sand and they run across the beach, they scramble across the beach on their own, and then they have to swim 3, 5, 10 miles out in the Gulf of Mexico. I was like, if they can do that, I'm gonna do everything I can to help them, because they have so many obstacles against them. And that's what inspires me every time I see it.
In 1969, we walked the entire length of the key, and there were only 9 nests that year. And they have increased so drastically that this year we are already up over 1,300 for nests on Longboat Key. 10, 20, 30, 44 hatched.
So 75 eggs.
We think conservation efforts, our conservation efforts, all around Florida's conservation efforts, the 1973 Endangered Species Act, the turtle excluding device that shrimpers now have to have on their boats, just more awareness of this species that is threatened and endangered. And Longboat Key specifically, Longboat Key Turtle Watch has helped to get past a fire ban. So early in the year, our time period, when we did try to stake nests before we put them on lanais, people would steal the stakes for firewood. So in the early 80s, we got a fire ban. We also got a lighting ordinance put through in 1992, and recently have a better lighting ordinance put through 2 years ago. And we now have an ordinance which bans people leaving beach furniture on the beach. And we were also responsible for helping to get that TED law passed, the turtle excluding device. Years past, I used to feel good about, oh, I saved a baby turtle, or oh, I got to see this or I got to see that. But the more years I do this, the more I realize that the reward comes from seeing the entire population increase. And so you know your effects are long-term.
Animal Outtakes is produced by Dante's Den Foundation, a nonprofit group dedicated to creating the best life for dogs. If you would like to learn more about Dante's Den, donate, or volunteer, visit our website, dantesden.org. We hope you had fun and learned a thing or two as we took a look back at some of our trips this season. We'll be back here again next week with even more animals and some wild adventures. Until then, thanks for watching. No, if you're going to make your television debut, you have to behave. Wait a minute, we're stuck. Now you got it. You just keep staring. Okay, just keep staring. Just wait a minute, I'm losing them. Hold on.